Hey everyone, what is going on? And welcome into our latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchy. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and today's story brings together two powerful names, Mike Tyson and President Donald Trump. Why? Well, Mike Tyson just appeared on the Katie Miller podcast, where he said he's expecting good news on cannabis rescheduling. Those words matter because back on August 11th, President Trump said he'll have a decision on rescheduling soon. Since then, we've seen a lot of attention on the issue. Major outlets like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post each published stories back in early August, covering the possibility of a rescheduling move. While they haven't revisited it since, their reporting helped put the story in the national spotlight. So now you've got Mike Tyson's comments, and they land at a very interesting moment, one filled with possibility, but also with caution. So let's review what was said in this podcast and the significance of it all pertaining to rescheduling, because this is the latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchy. Let's get into it. All right, on the podcast with Katie Miller, Tyson was direct. He called cannabis medicine. He said lawmakers are afraid of a little flower, and he downplayed the risks, joking that taking too much usually just makes you fall asleep. So that kind of blunt honesty is classic Mike Tyson. He wasn't reciting talking points, he was speaking from conviction. And let's face it, the platform, it mattered too. This wasn't some random podcast. Katie Miller, the host, is married to senior Trump advisor Stephen Miller. That puts Tyson's comments right into Trump's orbit, where they'll be heard by people who actually matter. But it wasn't just about politics. Tyson also shared personal reflections on cannabis and what it means to him. One of the standout moments came when Tyson spoke about athletes. He said cannabis helps players relax and, in his own words, even play better. He admitted he wished he had discovered it during his fighting career. So imagine one of the fiercest fighters in the history saying cannabis could have made him better in the ring. That's telling. Then he contrasted cannabis with alcohol. He said if he were a role model who drank heavily, that's not something he'd want fans to copy. But cannabis, he sees it as safe, beneficial, and something that fits his lifestyle. This is what I do. I smoke marijuana, and that's part of my life. It's my journey, Tyson said. So that's personal, and that's lived experiences. So from there, Tyson shifted from the personal to the political and what he's hearing behind the scenes, and this is important. Tyson made one thing clear. He isn't speaking directly with President Trump about rescheduling, but he has been in touch with people inside his administration. And his takeaway is this: he's looking forward to good news. So that kind of confidence naturally gets attention. Tyson is connected enough to have insight, but not so tied to politics that he needs to mince his words. And this interview, it wasn't a one-off. Earlier this summer, Tyson co-signed a letter to President Trump with other athletes. They asked for three things: rescheduling cannabis, granting clemency for non-violent cases, and banking access for legal businesses. All makes sense. He also appeared on Fox News. In addition to that, he's toured a DEA lab. He's warned about the dangers of illicit cannabis, especially products laced with fentanyl or pesticides. So this is part of a pattern. Tyson is consistent, and his latest remarks fit that track record. So really, when you look into this, the timing of this podcast is what makes it especially noteworthy, because really, here's the context. Back on August 11th, President Trump said he'd have a decision on cannabis rescheduling soon. So that statement, it really set the stage to where we are here today. In the days that then followed, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post each published stories that pushed really the overall conversation further into the mainstream. And those stories were widely shared, but neither outlet has covered it again since. Still, that early August burst of attention added fuel really to the overall national conversation. And that's where Tyson's podcast appearance lands, right after the president himself raised expectations and just as speculation continues to swirl. Now, it is important to be balanced here. Tyson's comments add weight to the moment, but nothing is final until Washington actually acts. In fact, history has shown that sometimes when stories like this generate too much noise, it can actually create political risk, and that risk could delay or even derail policy decisions. So let's be mindful here. And really, we need to view Tyson's optimism as part of the conversation, not as a guarantee. So really, here's how it all lines up. First, you got President Trump, who's already said a decision is coming soon. You also have two major national outlets who covered it back in early August, giving the story broad visibility. And now you've got Mike Tyson, an athlete, an entrepreneur, and let's face it, a cultural icon. He's now adding his voice with confidence. So when you put that all together, you can see why the cannabis industry is paying close attention right now. But we also have to recognize the other side. The president does have options. He could move forward, He could wait, or he could pull the decision off the table altogether if the political cost feels too high. So that's why it's important not to get swept up in the rumor cycle. The signals are strong, but let's face it, they're not final. So really, where does this leave us today? Here's the bottom line. Mike Tyson used his appearance on the Katie Miller podcast to say he's expecting good news on cannabis rescheduling. He spoke about cannabis as medicine. He said it helps athletes relax and perform. He compared it to alcohol and made it clear it's part of his life. He also revealed he's been talking with people in Trump's administration, and he sounded confident about where things are heading. That's telling. So the timing here, as we said before, is important. Tyson's comments came just after President Trump said a decision is coming soon, and after national outlets like the Wall Street Journal and the New York Post helped push the issue into the mainstream. But while all this points to momentum, it's also important to be careful. High-profile moments can raise expectations, and sometimes that can shift political calculations in unpredictable ways. So let's be mindful here. But overall, this is good. So for now, we watch, we listen, and we stay balanced. Tyson may be right that good news is coming, but until there's an official decision, it remains just that, an expectation. So that's it for today. I'm your host, Shad Dales. This is the latest TDR Cannabis in 5 presented by Dutchy. Thanks for checking in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit on that bell for all notifications to keep updated the moment that there's real news out of Washington. Leave some comments below. What do you think of the podcast, and what was your takeaway? Love to hear your feedback, so let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay open-minded, stay connected. Thanks again for checking in, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, everyone.